Welcome to the build of the AH-6J Little Bird in 1/35 scale by Kitty Hawk. In the next 25 minutes I will show you in detail how to build, paint and weather the helicopter, and how I created a custom diorama base with some accessories. Prepare for a ride full of fine detail, some frustration, creative breakthroughs, and finally a build I'm really proud of. Before we start with the cockpit and engine, some words about the kit. I had been looking forward to this kit for a long time and was happy that it was recently available again after Kitty Hawk disappeared from the market. My expectations for the kit were therefore very high. I'm also willing to accept the manufacturer's known weaknesses, as there are no alternatives. Right away it's clear. Kitty Hawk packed in tons of detail. Some of it is amazing, some just overly complicated, a lot of the parts feel unnecessarily small, and the cleanup is intense. If you want a deep dive into the kit itself, I've made a full review, so check that out. Construction begins with the engine compartment. Once the parts are cleaned, you can enjoy the beautiful details. I had trouble finding good reference photos, so I relied on the instructions. The fit didn't cause any problems here. As always, I try to assemble as much as possible and leave only a few parts separate to make painting easier. Here we have the parts for the front cockpit. I'm sanding away the beautiful details of the instruments because I'm planning an upgrade. A known flaw in the kit is the second control stick, which is incorrectly displayed. Kitty Hawk mirrored the control stick, but of course both sticks have to be identical. You have to find a solution here or live with the error. I took the stick from a second kit and I'm looking for a solution when I build a second kit. Not the best approach, but it's okay for now. The photo edge seat belts are included in the kit and are not very easy to bend. Using Tamiya Extra Thin and a stiff brush, I add some texture to the seats. The parts for the rear cockpit are also prepared and assembled here. To improve the two monitors in the cockpit, I added a cable and some plastic card to make them look more realistic. This marks the end of the first construction phase. For the interior painting I started with white primer from AK for the engine compartment and grey primer for the other cockpit parts. After the primer dried, I sprayed a thin coat of insignia white. It's easier to spray all the white parts first and then paint the metal parts, although a white base isn't ideal for metallic paints. Most of the interior is black. Since the exterior is also black, I tried to use as many different shades of black as possible to add some variety and depth. You could also use dark grey tones or mix different colors like blue or green into the black. Just give it a try. Now other details were picked out with a brush and acrylics. If I want to apply metallic colors with a brush, Vallejo metal colors work best for me. I allowed myself some artistic freedom with the color of the seats and belts, as they can also be black. A real upgrade for the cockpit came from the Red Fox Studio 3D decal set for the instruments. These sets aren't cheap, but they are worth it, especially for a clearly visible helicopter cockpit. Finally, I used AK markers to simulate some chipping and add more metallic tones to the engine parts. Here I was not sure which primer color the real helicopter has to shine through. As always after painting, weathering followed. My initial goal here was to add a few additional colors using filters. The seats and seatbelts are also not forgotten. All the black painted parts contain very nice details, but they are barely visible. I used AK panel liner to highlight them. I let it dry briefly and then clean off any excess. After this initial phase of increasing the modularity of the colors, it's now time to add some dirt and wear. For this I use slightly stronger colors, let them dry and then clean them up until I'm happy with the result. Brown tones for the engine compartment and dust for the rest of the cockpit are a good choice. You just have to be careful not to completely remove the previous effects. Basically, it's a matter of playing around with weathering products, thinner and cotton swabs until you achieve the desired finish. At the end, a layer of clear coat seals everything and the parts are ready for assembly. Assembling the interior doesn't pose any major problems. The fit is good and it's a joy to assemble the highly detailed parts. Here's the finished cockpit and engine compartment. Before we continue, the two fuselage halves need to be prepared. This involves drilling a few holes and attaching a few small parts. The two fuselage halves fit together surprisingly well, and I was very confident for good progress. Unfortunately, the clear part was a disappointment. The front part of the cockpit protrudes too far and is therefore pressing on the windshield. It wouldn't work without sanding. I had to sand away the leading edge and repair the paint damage with AK markers. Also, the fit of the clear part was now better, the windshield remained a problem, as you will see later. Work continued on the fuselage. Despite the good fit of the halves, some filler will be needed. Here I am masking the windshield for painting. I aligned the problematic clear part so that there were as few gaps as possible on the sides. To compensate, I accepted a gap on the top and bottom. I filled these later and carefully sanded them. Overall, the clear part is one of the kit's biggest weak points. I may have also made a mistake when assembling the interior. Nevertheless, you should be prepared for problems here. I only glued the doors in place temporarily to protect the interior. They fit very well, but I will not use the doors in the end. I have now added missing parts to the fuselage and sanded a few small details here and there. Attaching the helicopter skids was once again a bit of frustration. The design is unnecessarily complicated and detailed, and everything has to be cleaned, which is again time consuming. The locating pins are useless. I removed them and then aligned and secured the helicopter skids as best as I could. You will need some patience here to achieve a symmetrical result. Here you can see all the parts of the rotor head. The assembly was again more cleaning than assembly, but overall doable. Now it was time to attach the remaining parts to the fuselage before continuing with the painting. I assembled the tail and there were no problems. The helicopter has a lot of antennas, and there are also different configurations. I'm not entirely sure if I chose the right antenna combination, but I can live with the result. Attaching the tail rotor mount completes the fuselage assembly. Everything is sanded and cleaned and interior is masked off for painting. The exterior paint job is not really that exciting. Painted black is the motto. For the exterior I'm using two different shades of black. I'm using NATO black for all the rotor parts and I sprayed the fuselage with Hataka Night Black, a lacquer-based paint. The paint works very well, it covers instantly and dries very quickly. I don't need to apply clear coat here. The kit has very few decals. They are very thin and work without any problems. I used some setting solution to help them blend in better with the surface. This was a quick, uncomplicated construction step that brings me closer to the end. As with the interior, I also wanted to highlight the beautiful details on the fuselage and rotor parts. For this I used AK panel liner again. I apply it to the rivet rows and panel lines, let it dry and then clean off any excess with a cotton swab. Proper cleaning is important here, because otherwise it will look too milky. I don't want to overdo the weathering at this stage, as I'll be building a base later and creating the actual finish there. A layer of clear varnish sealed the weathering products applied so far. The main rotor is now assembled. A few minor paint repairs are made and the assembly is quickly completed. A second weathering layer with dust is now also applied. Not too much, just to add an extra tone. Finally, I use good old dry brushing with metallic oil paint to add highlights to the rotor and tail rotor. This weathering section is also sealed with clear varnish at the end. Since I choose the attack version of the little bird, we are now building the weapon loadout. Here are all the parts for the two miniguns. I don't use the optional PE parts because it's challenging enough with the plastic parts. Cleaning the parts and aligning the gun barrels was very difficult. I was very happy when everything was together. Not my best work, but still sufficient in the end. The rocket pods also need to be thoroughly reworked. Using Tamiya extra thin and plenty of pressure, everything is brought into shape. Then it's sanded and polished until it's ready for painting. Once again, a lot of work for essentially simple parts. I used my own color choices to make it more visually interesting. After the decals have been applied and sealed, weathering follows. All weapons receive a complete weathering treatment with various washes and a bit of dry brushing. The final assembly begins with the removal of the masks and all protective aids. Although everything looks very finished, there are still many things to do. There are only a few points where you can keep the helicopter stable without breaking something. I take my time and don't try to rush everything. After the masks are removed, I attach the lower part of the rotor head. To show part of the engine, I will leave one door open. Even for a closed view, the doors fit very well. I am painting the position lights on the sprue. There are several options when choosing the lights. Here too, I'm not sure if I've chosen the correct setup. The instructions could be better here, as with the antennas. The small fire extinguisher, which I painted with acrylics, brings some color to the cockpit. I decided to attach the 2 miniguns and the 2 larger rocket pods as armament. I don't use the ammo belts included as PE parts. After attaching the tail rotor, I glue the open door to the engine compartment with superglue. I won't glue the main rotor, but I will just attach it to keep it movable. The model is now finished. I'm very happy with the model so far, but to show it off even better I need a proper diorama base. In the next 5 minutes I will show you how I built the base and some accessories to make everything even more visually interesting. First I prepare a simple picture frame. I fill it with Stevaline, a type of plaster, but a bit more stable. The idea is to show an old abandoned airfield that's no longer in its best condition. Before everything is completely dry, I sprinkle some sand over it. Once it hardens, you have the ideal base for concrete slabs. All you have to do is scratch them in with a suitable tool. Damage and weathering can also be easily scratched in here, but you need some strength. Everything is well primed and then sprayed with AK real color sand tones. Here I have made random markings with masking tape and used masking fluid to depict paint damage. I spray the white paint in a very thin layer and after it dries I remove all masking. To make the base even more interesting, I wanted to add some visual highlights. I use a paper tissue and diluted white glue to create turbulence. Afterwards, everything is painted with acrylic paints in different green shades. After painting, the entire base is thoroughly weathered. I use various filters and weathering products for this. Now I'm going to create another eye catcher. I'm using 2 3D printed wooden pallets and the leftover rocket pods. The wooden pallets are first painted. Thin masking tape is used to simulate metal bends. Even though the rocket pods probably won't be transported like this, I really like the result. All accessories are now arranged and attached to the base. To achieve the most realistic look possible, I use pigments. I use these on both the base and the helicopter model to blend everything together. A final coat of matte clear varnish seals everything. I have to say, the extra effort with the accessories and the base was definitely worth it. After the windshield is polished, the model is glued to the base. I attached the main rotor and the project is complete. Here it is, the finished AH-6J Little Bird from Kitty Hawk in 1/35 scale, arranged with some accessories on an attractive diorama base. This build had some ups and downs. There were long breaks where I lost motivation and finished some other models meanwhile, but seeing it come together in the end made it all worth it. If you want a nicely detailed little bird in 1/35 scale, then Kitty Hawk remains the first choice. The weaknesses of the kit and the instructions are something you will just have to live with. Overall, you grow with each new project, and in the end I'm very pleased with what I've created here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing and supporting the channel as you can. Let me know in the comments what you think of the kit and my version of it. It really helps a small channel and motivates me to keep going with more projects like this. Until next time, goodbye.